You know what? In that interview, I have a couple of questions for you as a hip hop nerd. So I would love to know about these two situations because I don't think we've ever talked about them personally. Maybe we have, but I don't think we have. You mentioned General Jeff and him not acknowledging you, RIP, from what I understand,
Right.
but him not acknowledging you as the godfather of West Coast hip hop, or him having some doubts about you being the godfather of West Coast hip hop. Is that safe to say?
Yeah. You know, I tried.
Where did that come from?
His lack of knowledge, his ignorance. Somebody posted something on Facebook one time, and he goes back. Somebody tell Lonzo he's not the godfather of West Coast hip hop, and I ignored it for weeks, man. I kept ignoring it, and then he pushed the button one day, and I had to go in on him. And when I went on him, he shut up. Because he doesn't realize that the reason why he got exposure in the first place is because the company that I created, West Coast Record Distributors. You know, that was something that I came up with the idea for when I left Michel'le, because Unknown and I had did another distribution company together. We did a Pacific Coast after we left West Coast. And then, but again, the idea for doing West Coast was my idea. And I'm the one that put everybody together and presented it to them and made the drive down to Palm Springs and made all the connections, and that's the reason why Rodney O and Joe Cooley was able to come out, because of West Coast Record Distributors. You know, he's a pop locker. You know, and some people at one point, some people in this game, especially now, because they're talking to people who are so much younger than them, they don't know the people who they're talking to don't really know the history. They can't refute or even question them. So people blow themselves up to be bigger. And then when somebody walk into the room, a lot of that shit shuts down, because it's like, okay, this motherfucker right here, he ain't but three day ones on West Coast hip hop. It's 3 day ones, okay, and some day one A's and day one B's, but 3 day ones on West Coast hip hop is me, Roger from Uncle Jam's Army, and Unknown DJ. We're the day ones. Before it was hip hop, we were doing our shit. We the only ones that transitioned from the DJ and dance promotion into making records, performing, things of that nature. There are other people who are around, but they weren't as progressive as we were, and we never stopped. I mean, here we're still doing it today. Shit, I'm still doing it today. So and most people don't know that. If you know, guys like Jeff, he came in like 86, 87, dude. We was already doing this shit in 1978. You was in the 10th grade, wherever you were. You weren't with us, but because, you know, again, most people want to equate my credibility with my musical talent or my musical skills, whatever. No. I had to go do the hard work to lay down the tracks and grade the ground so we can lay the tracks down. It wasn't no tracks yet. So being a trailblazer has its disadvantages. Even the people I blazed the trail for don't know my true history. Dre don't know what I've done. You ask Dre, he knows Leave After Dark. That's all they know. So, but people who have been around for a long time, and here's where the trick comes in at. You have people who were dance promoters and DJs back in the early 80s. A lot of them moved on to do other things, but they watched me and Roger do our thing, and pretty much up until he passed, and still do our thing today. So we don't get the same recognition as maybe a Kool Herc, because Grandmaster Flash took what Kool Herc did and perfected it. And I had different roles, multiple roles, clubs, record labels, distribution, all that. So it makes a big difference. And most folks don't know. I don't even think Jeff ever been to my house. I can't recall him ever been in my house. So if you've never been to my house and you're in hip hop, West Coast hip hop, you don't know nothing. Okay, you never been to Lonzo's house and you wasn't call yourself a West Coast hip hop anything in the 80s. You never came to Lonzo's house. Your credibility is minimal, because my house and my clubs were the focal points of West Coast hip hop in the early days.
Yeah. Man, there it is. Straight from the horse's mouth, man. Um, how did West Coast distributors come to be between you, Egyptian Lover, Rudy Pardee? Like, how did you guys even think that big back then?
Well, I was the last one to leave Michel'le. Egypt came through. He left first. Rudy left second. Me and Unknown was still there. I left for a minute. Went to Epic, and I came back. Michel'le had the new friends, and he was kind of struggling. And it was only a matter of time before he went out of business. And because I had record distribution experience prior to coming to Michel'le. Again, my last job was working for a record distributor. That's what I did. Sold records on the phone. So I had that list. I was already established here in the city with the VIPs and the Magic Disc and everybody selling records already locally. So I knew the game. I'm selling Swamp Dogg and turned me on to everybody nationally, the Associated Records, Selecto Hits, Schwartz Brothers. I was already billing these guys. So back then it was basically a matter of creating a record, boxing the record, shipping the record, billing the company, and getting the money. And that's what it was. But again, because the four of us, Dream Team, Egyptian Empire, Crew Cut, and Techno Hop, were the big boys at Michel'le, it only makes sense for us to do what we did. And when I brought it to them, they didn't get it there first, but they thought about it. And once we had everything in order, Atrid and I made all the runs to make everything happen. I took him, hey, this is what we got. This is what we can do. And we all went to Steve Shelton collectively, and that's when he gave us a $25,000 line of credit, each one of us. Well, we had $100,000 collectively. Met with Georgia CRD, California Record Distributors down in Burbank, and it was a unique deal, but it worked. And we didn't have a whole bunch of money to make it work. What made it work was our label credibility and our record selling ability. You know, Rudy had success with LA Dream Team. He came out of West Coast with banging with JJ Fad. Egyptian Lover was already selling records with his label. Then he came out with Rodney and Joe Cooley. Unknown was doing his thing. He dropped Vanilla C and King T over there. And I came with the Compton compilation. So we all came with bangers. We was already hot, you know. So as opposed to somebody making us hot, we knew we had at that time we had our finger on the pulse like nobody else. And later on, other labels tried doing the same thing. They didn't have our same magic touch. We was already hit makers. We weren't just labels trying to hire artists to blow them up. We were artists that was blown up, that was bringing other people on, putting other people down.
Okay. And you know what? I'm glad you said that name, because you also mentioned that name during the interview with Tony A. Vanilla C. Mm-hmm. I don't know much, if anything, about Vanilla C. Can you talk to us about Vanilla C?
Vanilla C was a young lady that was on the Compton compilation, and she was a tight rapper, very tight. She was off the chain. My boy Charles Turner picked her up. He gave her a single deal through his company, City Fresh Records, and then later on, Unknown picked her up and did a deal with her also. And she was hot for a minute, but she never got the breaks that she really deserved. I mean, her talent. You know, it was much harder back then to break a female artist, especially if she wasn't taking the clothes off. And that just made it, you know, that much more difficult.
Yeah, cute girl too. I'm looking at her video. Is Vanilla Don't Play? Does that sound familiar?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, never heard from her. But yeah, she doesn't look like the type to take her clothes off. But damn, dude. Vanilla C, man. Do you know if she's still around, or maybe not doing music, but okay.
I haven't talked to her in a while, but some of the guys run into her. I think she lives out in Vegas now. I need to pop on. I need to try and track her down. I'm gonna look up on Instagram so I can find her.
That would be an interesting interview. I would love to hear her side of things, especially from a female aspect.
Yeah, she had a tight flow. She was a good writer, and Unknown did some good production for her. It just didn't take off.